Hey guys, Infidel 1258 here. Today we're going to talk about ECR and how many games you can play within Splinterlands per day, because it sounds as though some changes are coming to this, and it may be a dramatic rethinking and reimagining of what it looks like to invest your time and attention within Splinterlands. I'm not sure from what I've heard in the recent town hall that this would be a change I would approve of. And I'm going to talk about that today with Jim Morgan and my live audience. So I hope you'll stick around and stay tuned for this one. And if you want to be present at these live events, support the YouTube channel and you can come. Thanks a lot. Have an amazing day. God bless. ECR changes. Tell me what they said, because I watched it, but just refresh my memory.
Yeah, so rather than the ECR percentage that we have right now, let's say you'll get like 35 matches in a day, right? It's a stamina bar. So rather than it going down, your rewards dropping, you're going to get a flat amount. So you'll get 100% of the rewards every single game. But you only have the stamina for like 35 games, whatever the number is.
Yep. Yeah, I remember now. One thing that I wanted to actually post a critical video of this one. And maybe we can kind of record that live, and you guys, the chat, if you guys want to react to what I'm going to say. I have some prepared thoughts on this. I didn't write them down. I just kind of like took a one sentence thought and wrote it out. But it struck me that if we were to watch that clip where Matt's talking, he says, I want to properly remember it. I know that it was at like the 35-minute mark roughly in the video, but I don't know exactly where, so I don't want to go fumbling through the video. He said something like ECR was not properly thought out like initially. It's not doing what we wanted it exactly to do. It's needlessly complicated. It ends up leaving room for exploits. And he used that word, exploits. And he said, look, we want it to be more simple. We want it to be more, because through simplicity, we can reach a place where we can foresee, he didn't say this exactly, but this was, it seemed to me, the point. We can anticipate how it would be responded and used, and maybe if there were exploits, we could be, I guess, prepared for that, is the tone that I received when I heard him speak. And that seemed to be his main kind of argument for why this new method would be better. He talked about how, like, currently with ECR, bots can have one account, bot farms can have one account. They can put all their cards there. They can play until they go to zero. Then they can move the cards to another and play till they go to zero, and so on, giving the 48 hours or whatever to let your cards, let your ECR rest. And while the cards are, I guess, resting also, because you can't transfer and play right away. But I just don't know that I see this as being, this is my critical response. I don't see this as being an answer to that, unless I'm not properly understanding how this will work. But look, if you can play 35 matches and that's like let's say your day worth of playing, that's roughly what it is today. Unless you want to go right to zero. Like if you want to go to 25% off of if you want to spend your day worth of ECR, you're going to play about 30 matches. If you, and if we go to say 35 matches a day are playable, period. I mean, first of all, I'm not sure that's enough. He said you'll still have too many matches for you to play. That was one of the things he said. So I don't think 35 is enough. I think it would have to be like 50 or 100 or maybe even 200, where you just couldn't get through them all unless you absolutely were intentional about it. Maybe I think 100 is a good number, because some people just want to play all day, and they should want us to want to play all day. But then even if whatever number you choose, 35, 50, 100, 200, who cares? I don't see how, if it's a set number of games versus a complicated ECR, that helps avoid bots doing what we just said. Like you can still send the assets around, unless it's like 35 games today, 35 games tomorrow, 35 games the next day. And the thought is, well, there's no, if for them to send cards from account 1 to account 2, they'd have to wait for the period of time while the cards are being transitioned. And if that's the solution, then it really isn't about changing ECR. It's about just the fact that you get an allotment, like you could still call it ECR, you could still use ECR, but like every day it's just essentially, you'd be lowering ECR if it's 35 games. If that's your target, it'd be like 35 is your max. That's it. And you can't stack it. You can't burn through 300 matches like we currently can, and extract rewards and then let it recover for 2 days. So that was one point. I don't know that this solves the problem he seems to be pointing to, but then also there's one more thing. And maybe I'll give you a moment because I want to grab my thought on that. Did you have anything that you wanted to add on this?
I remember a while ago that they talked about how they didn't want to do a stamina system, kind of like what they're proposing right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because they just wanted people to play whenever they wanted to, and they shouldn't be restricted earnings based upon a stamina bar, even though the ECR is kind of a stamina bar, but you still earn a percentage of when it is that you're playing, right? So, this does go completely away from that idea, and I don't know if that's something I should maybe not think about anymore, based upon what they've said in the past and changes that they're now making, because this has now happened a couple times, and we've talked about it, of things they've said in the past and now are changing their minds on, which I understand. If it makes the game better, sure, let's do it. But I do think it is one thing to think about. Just because they have said something in the past doesn't mean they won't change it. Yeah,
that's true, and it's an important point to bring up because it does. You're right. Part of, I think, the message that I have heard repeatedly, and I think we have heard repeatedly, is just that we want people to be incentivized to play more. We don't want to cap their play, because that would be to say, once you meet this threshold, go find some other game to play. We want them to be here all day. It capture as much time and attention as possible. That's the point of any game.
Yeah.
And
Days also pointed out, they said they didn't want a stamina bar. They said they didn't want to make multicolored summoners, and we got multicolored summoners coming out soon.
That's right. Yeah, we should talk about that for sure. I just want to. There was a couple more things I wanted to say on this too, though.
Yeah, sorry.
You're right. They projected one thing, but I think almost. I really feel strongly what you said. If it makes the game better, let's do it. I'm not exactly seeing how this would solve the problem that it sounds like Matt feels it will solve. I would love to hear more about this and see a written blog post and have a better understanding of how many games per day and why would that stop bots from changing cards around. That was a question mark I didn't feel was properly answered. And left me critical because it's that seemed to me to be the main reason why this was being proposed. And then I was like, okay, but how and why? If you're wrong if that's the reason why this makes sense, then prove to me that that's going to be helped by that problem will be resolved or at least aided by this amendment. And then I would be I would personally be okay. If I can follow your logic, I'm happy to, support that. But if I don't see a connection between, changing from an ECR to a per day number of games, stopping bots, I just can't. And that's kind of where I'm at this moment. Well, once you finish your stamina bar, come join me and Jim and play some tower defense. That's right.
Another good point.
That's right.
Because, sure, you're not playing Splinterlands all day, the card game, but still being in the environment of all the Splinterlands stuff, I don't think it's a bad idea. And if they plan on making more things, more different game modes, essentially, and the ECR stamina bar is just for the card game part of it, then it wouldn't be an issue at all. Because again, you can still utilize your assets in these other games. Yeah, I think I want to say a month ago, I did a video talking about how this game is quickly, and you were there too, I think, Jim. We talked about how
this game is quickly becoming a full-time job, and
Yeah.
and it's because of what you just said. It's not just the daily rank. I after thinking about it, like I've been saying for a while, brawls are my favorite part of the game, and that's true still. But then I thought about it. I'm like, wow, I'm playing 15, 20, 30 matches a day also, which is new. I used to play 5 to 10. And so I'm playing the rank battle way more than I used to. I'm playing tournaments, or not tournaments, guild brawls every single week. And I'm interested whenever I have time to get into Splinter Forge. I'm excited for what tower defense will be, and land is like, to me, sounds like it's absolute game changer. I'm talking about it with my work colleagues because I'm like that excited about it. They don't even know Splinterlands, but I'm like, this is game changing. It's massive, and so how do you do it all? Like even if they want me to play 100 games a day, if they create some ECR or something like it where I could do that, I don't know that I'd be able to. There was one more little thing that I remember. They talked about how one of the criticisms or questions that came from the audience was, it was framed like, hey, what if I go away for a couple of days? Can I like save up my ECR or the equivalent of the ECR so that I can really game when I come back? And there was a pretty hard and fast no to that. And I'm thinking maybe we could take a minute just to talk about that. I'm not saying I'm against there not being that. You know what I mean? I don't really know where I stand, and so I'd love to hear your thoughts. But just the way the points that kind of pop out at me when I think about it would include, well, we want those people to play as much as they can, and if they're forced to go away, maybe it would be good to let them have something like that where they could maybe spend DEC to, like, I don't know, have power storage so that they can then, when they return, they can use that. But maybe it should be disposable, so it's not a forever thing. But then I could imagine, I think Aggie said something like that, and then Matt said, well, no, it sounds like an exploitable thing. And I think that might be true. Is there some is that a problem, like that we are potentially telling people who love this game, when you go away, you just miss out? Is that a problem? Because that's kind of the message I heard. What do you think, Jim?
Like, yeah, it's a problem, but is it also a bigger solution to the problem that so many people have been talking about forever with these bots? It's like, okay, sure, I went AFK for 2 days, whatever. Mm-hmm. Well, how long does it take for cards to give you back? Or can you like play cards on a different account then, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. So, all right, then at that point, I'm AFK for 2 days on vacation, not playing, mm-hmm. meaning some bot now gets even more rewards than it should be. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, sure, I understand that it's rough for legitimate players, but then you're also benefiting the people you hate the most, mm-hmm. which are the bot players.
Yeah, I hear you. And that's true too. I think, but then does this then mean, I think I agree with you. So I can't imagine a way where we would do, we would essentially allow you to store your ECR across days you're not playing, where that would be, I guess, free from exploit. So I agree. It sounds problematic, but then that makes me think, in this new world, aren't bots even more important for players like you and me and everyone who's probably listening, who have a deck of cards, who play this game regularly, maybe daily, but then there are times where you just can't because you're sick, because your kids are sick, because you're busy at work, whatever the case may be? Aren't bots even more important in a sort of world where that window becomes more restrictive? Meaning, today, if I know that I'm going to be away tomorrow, I could go ahead and I really wanted to make sure I'm taking maximum advantage of my cards. I could play to 0 ECR and then let that recharge. And it sounded like maybe there was going to be something like that, but how does that work when you tell me I'm going to have, did you just make the number 35? Like, did you just kind of suggest that?
I just made it up.
Okay.
Yeah. I just picked a number.
Okay. If it's like 100, if the total number of battles is, let's say, I don't know. I think it needs to be probably at least 50 or maybe 100. And I've heard Gathering the Magic talk about this before, and he thinks maybe 200 is a number we could allow. But I guess it makes me think I'm going to want to bot more to run my cards when I can't, because I really don't want to miss those opportunities. If those opportunities in some sense have shrunk because you've changed from an ECR table that can be, I guess, gimmicked in the way I just described, that lets me go away for 2 days kind of thing, versus some new thing where I have 35 or 50 credits a day that I can, games I can play.
And let me just clarify real quick. So when I'm talking about like the bots that most people hate, they tend to talk about the ones where it's, oh, I have one collection that I'm sending to a bunch of different accounts, and now, maximizing my ROI.
Yeah.
And in comparison to just one account, one bot can play it. Like, I know a lot of people don't really have a problem if it's just one account, one bot.
Mm-hmm.
It's when you have, that farm.
Yeah.
That farm that you're able to set up. That's the one a lot of people have a problem with.
Yeah, that's a good point to maybe wrap that conversation on, because I agree. I think as long as I personally don't think it's a problem if somebody runs a bot to let their cards play.
Yeah.
I don't even think it's a problem if you have multiple accounts and you do that with bots. I do think it gets to be a problem where you have thousands. I don't know where that line in the sand is. You could call me, say like, well, that's what does that look like? Like, give me border set. I don't know. I don't do any of that. So right now, I have one account, and I have lots of accounts, but my only account is Infidel 1258 that has all of my cards. And in the past, I've used several of my accounts to try and like fight at silver or gold. I've just decided it's too much work, so I can't be bothered to do it, even though I think it's an interesting opportunity. I wouldn't begrudge somebody doing that, but somewhere there's this, I don't know, this hard to define line where you're not just doing that, you're now running a bot farm, and I don't know how to describe that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, don't know.
There was a cool comment from Deus. I saw him say, what did he say? I wonder if maybe the stamina bar is a small step toward having cards have their own stamina. And this, to me, would be an amazing... I can't think of a bad thing about this. It would make a lot of sense, practically, like, because... it might be annoying if my favorite cards run out of stamina first, but it makes sense. Like, it's a monster. It has, you know what I mean? Like, it just kind of would fit within what they're kind of building with land. You need to feed those monsters while they're farming. You need to have monsters be there because it's not just an inactive process. It's not a passive process. It's an active process of farming and mining. And they're battling, and we're going to have a literal land that we can go have an arena in, and we can visit. And there's all this stuff, like trying to build it out like it's almost this world. And it would make sense if there was fatigue. But I'll say, and Jim, as a gamer, you've played games, I assume, where your hero has fatigue. It's so annoying when you have to go into an inn and like get sleep to
There's
like...
nothing worse than having to pay attention to durability on armor, stamina stuff. It is miserable.
Yeah. And you have to like go in, and one example that I've really enjoyed, one game I've really loved is Skyrim. And in Skyrim, you get, and actually Fallout too, they've tried to do different versions where it's like pretty serious. Like, you need to eat, you need to drink water, you need to... Fallout did it a bit more. 76, at least at certain times, you've had to like, if you don't drink water, you start to get more and more like a smaller and smaller health bar. And those things can get pretty annoying. However, I do think that would be a powerful move for Splinterlands, because the whole thing is owning cards, growing your collection, deeper investment. Why? So that you have the ability to extract value, profit, cryptocurrency, NFTs that are coming to you for permanent ownership because you've made a certain commitment into this space. And so I could see that being a logical next step from their perspective. And I even think I would like that because of the consequences that I would imagine would flow. Card price appreciation because you need more than one copy of certain cards. They're that good.
There's also a downside to it for like rentals.
Talk to me about that.
I don't, I just don't know how that would work with rentals off the top of my head. Because not only are you now renting it, you then would have to wait for its stamina to come back, or if you now have to put DEC into it to now add stamina back to it. Yeah, or I don't know. It seems just like such a complicated thing to do.
Yeah. And to tie it back to the prior conversation around the ECR change, Matt said that he wants to eliminate the ECR because he feels as though it's needlessly complicated, and it's adding a certain degree of complexity and out of that complexity comes opportunity for exploit. And so while I could see Deus being right about their vision for card specific kind of stamina, and I could imagine the logic there, and I could even maybe see benefit out of it as a card owner, I think that might be the exact same thing that they're trying. They think they're trying to avoid. And in all things, we always have to remember, like Matt and Agro, I think they're both geniuses. I think the whole team is full of geniuses. But people are people. We make mistakes. We can't. Oh, and let me finish here on this topic of the ECR and everything. This was the one other point that I really wanted to make. And the criticism I wanted to kind of levy at Matt specifically, hopefully constructively. It felt as though his point was, with this new iteration of planning and this new stamina bar or whatever it's going to be called, we know that there will be no exploits. And I just feel as though there's no way to understand the unintended consequences of these complex decisions. There's no way. And part of the problem with some of our critical community, because there are, criticism is great. We need to be critical. I'm not saying don't be critical. What I'm saying is when we're critical needlessly, or let's say without recognizing the complexity or the nuance of a conversation, we aren't helping anybody. Like, we're not helping ourselves because we're not really processing something in a meaningful way, but we're not helping the community or maybe the developers because we're not helping to, I guess, lead to a more constructive end. And so I just think we got to remember, I believe this is true. You're never going to understand all of the unintended consequences of these complex economical decisions within a game that is literally revolutionary and that is paying you for your time and attention through cryptocurrency and NFTs. And so I don't feel like there is going to be one silver bullet that will be perfect and non-exploitable. I feel that it strikes me, and again, I'm open to hearing more about this ECR change. I want to see what it would look like and understand it better before I come to a final decision. But right now, I feel like we are never going to get to a perfect system, and I'd rather just have a system that we know, even if ECR is complex, we know it. And it's like sometimes the devil that versus the one you don't, people say. Or, also we change it because we think we're going to make it perfect, but then we got to learn this new thing and it's going to have some unintended consequence. So it's like the analogy that I thought about when I was listening to him was this. When I play a board game that everyone knows, there's always like for instance, Monopoly, you've played it, you know it. There are certain exploits in the game of Monopoly. Like you might recognize that certain groups of like the oranges or the yellows are like not subjectively better. They're like objectively better. They people who are professional Monopoly players, and yes, they have these tournaments where people literally bet real money. Those are the best because they're the ones that mathematically are landed on the most frequently because of different cards that, like, going back to jail and stuff like this will put you in the path of them more repeatedly. And so the point is, should they change the game because there's an exploit, because yellows or oranges are more profitable, more powerful, more no, it's just, that's the game. And so should we change the ECR because there are certain kind of nuances or complexity to it? In my mind, no, that's the game. But I'm also open to hearing more about it. So I'm excited to see how this will resolve the bot issue or the bot exploit issue. And if it will, let's go. But it just kind of sounded like maybe I couldn't see that connection, at least.